You're listening to Deliberate Living, a podcast that inspires, empowers, and encourages listeners to live life more authentically. My name is Holly Priestley, and I'm a full-time nomad and writer who has been living in my 1997 Ford van since January 1st of 2019. I travel the United States with my dog, learning how to live with more authenticity. I explore different ways people choose to ditch the prescribed life we've all been sold and live on their terms, finding freedom and happiness however they choose. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Deliberate Living podcast. I am your host, Holly Priestley, and this week we have two guests. I'm very excited about having Mayaan and Ash, and maybe their dog. I haven't seen him yet this morning, but maybe he's here somewhere on the show. They are a married couple who has been traveling the globe until 2020, ever since they got married about 4 years ago, and I just love their energy. They're just so happy. They're always smiling. And we did a little Talking Thursdays on their Instagram that I can link to in the show notes. But ultimately, these are just really happy, fun-loving, tenacious people, and I'm excited to have them on the show. So hello to Mayaan and Ash.
Hello.
Can you give a little bit of your background for somebody who hasn't been following you for a while, maybe doesn't know your story? How did you make the leap and leave Israel and start traveling the world?
Of course. First of all, we're also so happy to be here. We loved you from the first second we met you.
Oh.
So we're super happy to be a part of this. And this is also what's traveling all about. It's like being together, the travelers, and you being on our show, we being on your show. Please God, we'll meet each other also physically.
That would be so good.
It will be so fun. I can't wait to go with you on a canoe or something.
Yes.
So basically, we met each other in 2016. We were working in a vegetarian restaurant in the market in Jerusalem.
Small one.
Tiny.
Tiny.
The tiniest restaurant you can imagine, like the kitchen, maybe the size of where we are right now.
Whoa.
Yeah, super tiny and really family.
Yeah.
And we were lucky enough to meet each other. And we got married quite quick. We got engaged 6 months later. And yeah, we were radical.
Yeah.
We got married, and my dream before I met Ash was to travel the world for an endless amount of time. And I proposed it to him, and I was lucky enough that he was on it. We were on the same page, and that's how we started. We actually started traveling in the beginning without our dog. It was my dog from the army, from the K9 unit, and he stayed in Israel in the beginning. We did like a year and a half in Asia, and after Asia, we went to Australia, and then we went to the US. There was, traveling drama, and then we got to the US. We immediately bought our dog. We actually did a GoFundMe, and
It was broke.
We were broke, yeah, and we got our dog in, and it was a dream come true. And since it's been more than 2 years since, and we've been traveling in the US. We lived in a van for a year and a half, traveling around. Our van broke down about 6 months ago. It happened. And and since then, we've been nomads. We were mostly in California, and now we're in Chicago. And today, we got our ticket to Mexico.
Woo! When are you going to Mexico?
On the 15th of April.
Whoa, that's a really fast turnaround. You guys just got to Chicago and now you're leaving.
Yeah.
Yes, it's
Just came for
it's enough time, yeah.
Yeah, I bet it's pretty chilly there still. I mean, it looks like you're outside, but
No, it's
pretty far north.
Today is nice.
Today is nice, but sometimes even though the sun are warming, the
wind
it still can be chill. So
yeah.
I think that's incredible.
So that's the story in like speed.
Yeah. I have so many questions. You mentioned that Mayaan, you wanted to travel the world to an endless degree.
Yes.
Had you had either of you, before you got married, done any like global travel, or was this like just the beginning and it's just never stopped?
So I did the what of the most Israeli do after the army. I do it may, some years after that, not right after the army, but I go to India for 6 months. This is what a lot of Israeli did. They do or India or they do South America. So I go to India for 6 months, and there is a trail there that all the Israeli goes, and that's why it's called the Hummus Trail, because this is the
All the Israelis do it.
it's all the touristy Indian places that all the Israeli like to go there. So this is was my traveling for
Yeah.
6 months. It was very mind opening for me. And then I returned to Jerusalem and started to live there. And then I met Mayaan.
Right.
And she just
And I've been traveling since I was young. My family relocated to South Africa when I was 8. So I lived in South Africa since I was 8 till I was like 13. And we traveled a lot. And that actually put the traveling bug in me. So when I was 15, my twin sister and I already flew by ourselves to South Africa to travel. And then when I was 16, me and my twin sister traveled to America by ourselves for 2 months. And then when I was 17, I went to Europe. So I all the time was traveling, and all for money that I worked. Nothing like my parents. It was all like I waitressed and I babysat and I cleaned houses.
You just make it work.
Yeah. And I've been actually saving money since I was like 14.
Yeah.
For this big trip that I had in my vision. Very ambitious of me. But so for me, it was like something that was like building up.
Uh-huh.
And when we met, we did travel in Eastern Europe.
for a while.
Yeah, for a while. Like we went to Ukraine, Moldova, Romania, Bulgaria, right? We went to a few places, and we felt that it's really fun to travel together and that it's a great match.
No
Yeah.
kidding. So, Mayaan, I imagine that your parents, like, and your family and your friends were just like, all right, well, this is what she does.
Yeah.
Like, there was no like surprise when you guys left on your trip after you got married. It was like, all right, this is just life. Ash, was your family and friends surprised, or were they supportive, or?
It's a good question.
It's a good question. My family is, I have a support family anyway. My family is just like old-fashioned Israeli family,
Tunisian.
which is not easy for them, for their son just living and going traveling and all over. So it's not easy for them, and they kind of not understand why should you do kind of stuff. But they very support, and we are in very good touch. And still all the time I get like messages from family and friends that, come on, just come back. We missed you, and I missed both of you. But still, this, in the same saying, they say, we like what you're doing. This is your process. This is your journey. So do it. So it's like it's balance.
Yeah.
It's both.
That is so sweet.
And his parents are like a generation above my parents. They are the age of my grandparents, basically.
Okay.
So it's a whole generation difference, and they're also the
it's very layered.
Yeah, and they're Tunisian, so it's very like you get married, you have kids, you buy a house. It's every time we speak with my parents, they're like, "Where are you? What have you done?" You know, and his parents is like, "Yaji, when are you coming back home?"
Yeah,
So
I think that's pretty common here in America too. A lot of families think, you know, once you get married, you get a house and you start having babies, and then you just work and have a family, and like that's life. And I mean, that might be it probably is a really great life for those people who are doing it and who are choosing to do it. That's not my preference, and it's clearly not your preference. I think that the fact that your family like kind of has those built-in expectations, but that they're still supportive of whatever you're doing anyway, is really nice.
Yes.
It is actually. I think when all the people around you see that you're in your really true journey, so they don't have nothing to do but just let you go and do whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
This is a good perspective to know what you're doing. It's the right things. It's supposed to be like people try to delay you from going for it for a while, and then if you stay still and you clear a mind that that's what you want to do, so they just let you go and do.
Yeah, I think the most loving thing anyone can do for anybody else, whether it's family or friends or whatever, the most loving thing you can do is just support them on whatever journey they think is the best journey for them to be on.
Right.
So, what was your first 6 months to a year like traveling? Because you guys had only been married for like a month and a half. You'd only been dating for like a minute.
Yeah.
You're traveling the world together. I mean, that's a pretty strong litmus test to decide whether you guys are good buddies or not, like good travel partners.
Yeah.
What was the first little bit like when you're still figuring everything out?
And the smoking.
What smoking?
That you stopped smoking.
What it?
Okay, so what happened? It's a really good question because in the beginning, also Ash just stopped smoking cigarettes after 10 years.
Whoa.
Yeah. So that also added like intensity because
pretty irritable.
yeah, because you're like, it's like an addict to like, you know, so so that was a little bit intense in the beginning. And I guess we chose a good place. We went to Thailand in the beginning, and it's quite an easy place to travel compared to other places in Asia. Like after Thailand, we went to Burma, which is a little bit more like authentic. It's more authentic. So it's like you travel more like raw, you know, more like local. We hitchhiked most of it. So I think putting ourselves in Thailand was a good choice because it was like we had like lots of space to give each other. We could just sit on a beach and each of us take their own space and just learn like the rhythm of how we like to travel, because that's a big thing. Some people like to travel quick, some people like to be a week in each place, you know. So I think that was
Also, I think we knew from the beginning that we are a good friend, and this was the base of always relationship was about. Because it took us time to date, but after we realized that we are a very, very good friend and we see that we can give one each other what is needed and space and whatever, so we did what we did. And in any relationship, you need to get used to one and each other and discover yourself and the other partner while the life just happened.
Yeah.
So that's right. That in traveling time, it's not regular time. It's like all the time together, and it's like in a melting pot. But actually, I believe this was our luck because we go so fast through that process.
Yeah.
And for now, I think our the nature of a relationship, it's like, I don't know, it's like
we feel like we've been 50 years together.
Yeah, it's more. I don't know, 50 years, but it's more than 4 years. And I think this is good things to do, and I can wish it for each couple when they start their life just to spend 1 year at least together with no any interruption. It's such an amazing, yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
And still now, most of the things that we are not figure out, we finish with them. So we kind of like retirement our relationship. Yeah.
Yeah, we always talk in the van community about how like van time is not real time. It's more accelerated, it's more sped up, it's more condensed.
Right.
Um, and it sounds like that's not just limited to vans, like all kinds of travel is accelerated time, just very distilled, saturated.
Yeah,
Right.
it's just
It's like in a capsule, like everything put inside.
it's like what Einstein said, that time it's relative, so it's really relative, and
Yeah.
you can feel it for sure.
And I think actually afterwards, living in a van, it was like we were already so prepared for it. You know, living in a small space, it's it's
Yeah.
all good.
Yeah,
Yeah, no kidding. And having a van, you don't have to hitchhike. You can just drive yourself wherever you want to go, which I bet was
Yeah,
a huge amount of freedom.
huge. It was. It's, you know, that's also something that's also been good for our relationship, is that it's all the time changing. We're
Mhm.
never like living the van life. We're never only traveling. It's all the time. Like now we were 2 months in Thailand. Now we were a month in Myanmar. Now we're this, that. So also all the time changing, and it's like, so if something bothered me here, it's okay. I'm moving on. And that's also, I feel that's been very good for us as well. Is that we all the time know that everything is moving, everything is rotating, nothing stays. It's all good. So yeah.
I think that that concept brings with it a lot of like peace, like, all right, well, that whole like this too shall pass,
Right.
but you're actually like moving your life around like physically from country to country, or in a van, like from state to state or whatever, different lifestyle to different lifestyle. So
Right.
you're helping it just move on and keep rotating. So you're not going to get stagnant and like, let bad things fester or anything. Do you guys argue? How do you handle like butting heads or having disagreements?
I think like every other couple. Like sometimes in the beginning it was like huge fights, and
And much more
you know, yeah, and
ego
much
and
more ego in between, and maybe
Yeah.
days that we won't talk when nice for each other.
yeah,
And if we go forward, so now it's like we
10 minutes.
argue, we are different or whatever, and then human understanding and said, okay, this is not the way to figure out stuff. So let's just talk about it, and then we. But yeah, it was like, how do you say, it was like accelerated. So we
We had
go
to get it
we
quick.
go through all the process, but just in speed time. So there is. It's not like it was like just a miracle. We go through the whole process that every couple go through, but it was quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think also because we're all the time together, it's like we can't really run away from it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know,
The whole
it is
thing
what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of have to deal with it in the moment because, I mean, you guys are partners because you're married, but also no matter what country you're in, you don't have family there, you don't have friends there. Like you have to be a team to like accomplish anything you want to do anyway, because that's how you're traveling. That's how you're doing
Right.
life in general. So having good communication and being able to, get through the process of arguing quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's also a good thing for a relationship that you don't have any place to run or to hide or whatever.
Yes.
You have to deal with it, and that's it, because that's what you figure out anyway. What can I do? This is the partner that I choose to live with. So or I live in forever, or I just
Deal with it.
deal with it, and
Yeah.
something great.
Yeah, you're not doing yourself or your relationships any favors if you put off dealing with something that
You
needs
need
to be dealt with. You're not
exactly.
doing yourself any favors by
No.
not having an argument or a conversation that needs to be had. You're just kicking the can down the road, and it's probably getting bigger and bigger. And by the time you do address it, it's going to be an inflated version of what it should have been.
Exactly.
The faster you deal with it, the better.
We really always, like, after we fight, we actually feel like it gets less shorter and shorter. Like
Yeah.
this took 20 minutes, this took 10 minutes, because it's like also after you really put your ego aside, you understand, like, I don't want to waste my time now fighting. There's a beautiful beach outside, something like that.
It
So
would be much nicer if we were just getting along right now.
yeah. And it's true, because sometimes you can get to the most gorgeous place, and you're in a bad mood with each other. So it doesn't matter how beautiful the place is, you won't be able to enjoy it because you're not in sync together. You're not.
Yeah.
So it's not worth it, honestly.
Yeah, it's not even. Not even. What do you think are some of the biggest? Well, I guess we've talked about some of the pros, but some of the biggest pros and cons of full-time travel for you as a couple, and then as individuals. What do you think are some of the biggest pros and cons?
Pros and cons זה כאילו דברים טובים ודברים שליליים. You'll have some Hebrew on your on your podcast.
That's great. I love it.
So for us as a couple, how do you say it's best way for marriage life at the beginning?
Yeah.
And it's interesting. It's interesting to live that way. You just all over, and more important things about it, that's it doesn't matter how all over you are, your real problems that you need to deal with yourself is continue with yourself. It doesn't matter where you're going to be.
Yes.
And it was such a great lesson to have, because we all the time thinks, okay, so I have a problem here, so I move there, or I leave this relationship or whatever, and it will be fine. Because as that you say before, the things, there is no place to run away from nothing. You need to deal with everything. So this was a very good time for us to understand what the really things that bother us, and we carry on from place to place to place, and then you realize, okay, I need to deal with them, and it's such a great lesson.
Yeah, I think that's a big pro. I think also for me, like I get asked a lot if I don't know why, if I've done a degree, or am I going to do a degree? And Ash has a few degrees, and and I'm very not interested.
Yeah.
And I've realized that actually by traveling so much, and for us, most important in travels is meeting the people more than anything else, especially after traveling for so long. It's like the views are always going to be amazing and eye-opening and heart-opening. But the most important is the people. And, you could be in some really not so interesting places, but the people are so authentic and so nice that it could be your favorite place. So I think that for me, I've learned so much wisdom and so much like things that I would never even, my mind didn't know about or didn't think about, that's the biggest pro for me. It's just like to see how much I can learn from the universe and from the people and from the surroundings. And that I know that it sounds cliche, but it's like the best university. It's like the best, I don't need the best education. And I can also see how you can raise kids like this, because it's like, you get so much from just being around, I don't think I would have grown this much as a human if I would have been in one place. Actually moving and being so diverse and all the time having to like balance yourself in other places and other surroundings and cultures and languages. And it's all the time having to like learn yourself. How do I react to certain places? How do I react to certain people? And you all the time having to reflect on yourself. And also that's what's really, really nice traveling as a couple, that we can help each other to reflect on each other. And like if we see that someone's growing in something or having a difficulty in something, we can help guide each other. And I think that's the biggest pro, I would say.
Yeah.
And the
and also it's fun.
It's that's the obvious one.
Most of the time,
I mean, it's fun.
I mean, we feel so lucky. Like we've like won the system. We retired before we had to retire. We don't think, please God, that we'll ever have to like work intensely, because we don't use so much money and we don't need so much. And please God, even when we have a big family, I don't think that we're going to use so much also as a big family. Like when you live in a simple and minimalist way, if you want to call it, then you really just need the basics, because all the rest is just around you, you know?
It's nonsense.
And really, like, all the things that we aim for, and I think a lot of people in Corona saw it, that people like aim for certain things and they have like these dreams. It's so not worth it.
I definitely think that one of the good things that came out of 2020 was people having their worlds shifted so much that they have to reconsider what they're doing and how it's serving them. And you know, you guys didn't need a global pandemic to realize that. But some people do.
Yeah, and when a shift happens in the universe, it happens in everyone.
Yeah.
So if it happens around, then it happens in every soul and heart around. So it also helped in us, and probably just helped us grow more what we were feeling. And I think,
Yeah.
And
what are the hard parts? What are the hard parts? What are the cons of permanent global travel?
So all the art stuff is just about your how to say
comfort.
Yeah, it's just about your comfort.
Yeah.
It's not so comfort to move from place to place. Sometimes it's too rush for yourself. Sometimes it's you just want your old space that you just sit there and you have your own things that you like. And it's hard sometimes, but you learn by the time that you actually don't really like or need all those things. So what else are the...
I think even just getting used to like not having like where to fall back to. Like not having, like, we don't have really our family or friends. It's not like at the end of the day we could just, okay, I need to rest, like, let's go chill somewhere. It's, you know, I think that's maybe now a little bit less, because we've made friends and family, so we have more places that we could go chill in. But in the beginning, like, we didn't have any of that. And I think in the beginning also the money was difficult.
Yeah.
Also getting used to like living with less, and how to make money, and when to get like when it's enough, and when it's not enough. Yeah, I think what's hard for everybody.
Yeah. So how do you guys earn money on the road or wherever you are? How do you sustain the lifestyle?
So we left with a big amount.
She's saved.
What I told you that I saved.
14.
Saved quite a big amount.
So it was enough. It was, I don't know how much it was in dollars, but it was like
about
$25,000.
Okay.
Start with that.
And that lasted us for a year and a half.
Yeah.
Which is amazing, you know. And we lived nicely. It wasn't like we were like living in sleeping bags all day. Sometimes also, but we lived nicely. And then after a year and a half, we were broke. And we were going to, like I told you before, we made like a clothing line and a hemp products in Nepal.
Yeah.
And we were going to sell it in markets in Australia. And we were going to buy a van in Australia and go in Australia. And I got my visa super quick. And we already had a ticket and whatever. And Ash's visa just didn't arrive. And we waited and waited. And we already had a flight. So I flew. And unfortunately, 2 weeks later, Ash's visa was declined.
Oh, no. Yeah. Why would they do that?
Because I'm an American citizen, and he didn't have yet a green card or anything. So he was on an Israeli, and he's above 30 years old, and you know, those bureaucracy.
Yeah.
And in the end, so I stayed like 2+ months in Australia
By yourself?
by myself.
Oh man.
And he was in Singapore, and then he flew to Thailand. While we were thinking what to do.
Yeah.
And then, part of the miracle stories that happen in travels, Ash met on there's a Jewish center in Bangkok. And on the weekend, we have the Sabbath.
Mm-hmm.
So on the Sabbath, he met three 60-year-old funny Israeli guys.
That live in LA.
Yeah, that live in LA. And do you want to say this part?
Yeah, and then we just keep meeting each other during this weekend. And one of the guys told me, whenever you want to come to the US, so we have a place to come and live by me and whatever. So we become really good friends, and that's what I did.
In 24 hours, yeah.
That's amazing.
And that's what happened.
And then she joined us, and we live by this guy, and we're doing
I worked because I was legal.
And, and we're doing big Shabbos meals, which is Jewish traditional in the weekend for him and
always funny friends.
Always funny old friends. All Israeli that live Israel 30, 40, 50 years before, and they live now in the LA. And that was our beginning in the US. In the US. And then we have enough money to buy a van and start traveling. And then each time we stop here, we stop there, and working in
random
some random works,
gigs.
Just, some gigs to get the enough money to continue. And that's it. And we have a plan to get some passive income in one of the day, and it will be easier. But for now,
we're too much of butterflies.
We own it. We try to get it, but this is for now. We just get what we need from the road itself.
Yeah. And we are trying to slowly put more effort in Instagram and on our Etsy shop and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But naturally, we would prefer to not do it and just continue to butterfly around, and that when we need, we stop and do a gig or two and continue.
Yeah.
And we've had some harder, some parts that we only had $200 left and stuff like that. But each time it works so miraculously.
Yeah.
The universe just
guides us.
Supports you.
It's taking care of you.
It's taking care of you. But also the way we want to become on media is that we thought and we believe and we're feeling that we have a lot to share with people and give.
Yeah.
And I think it's very decent way to also to live from that, and that's where you're going through your own journey, which is something unique. We are both doing that, but we need to understand that most of the people in the world don't doing that, and they just look at us and say, "Oh, I want to do it one day." So we can be a guidance for them. We can be their inspiration, and in return, and I think we deserve to get an income out of what we are providing the world, and this way we can continue what we are doing, and in return just teach it to the world and spare it and give it around.
Right.
So
it's where we always kid. We say we should just be paid for living,
Yeah. In the beginning,
I am trying to figure out how to do that as well. I think that my being here should be enough.
Right? I think so too. You have so much to give.
Exactly.
So do you guys. I love just how joyful you guys seem to be, and I'm sure it's not always, and we all have contrast, good days, bad days, ups and downs, but so much of what you exude is just optimism and contentment and, you know, the expectation that things are going to continue to be amazing. And I think that that's part of the reason things continue to be amazing. And so I mean, that's definitely something that we can all learn from and emulate a little bit better. You mentioned that you're going to be going to Mexico here in, well, probably before this thing actually gets to go live. So by the time this goes live, you'll be in Mexico.
Yeah.
Do you know how long you're going to be there? Do you have any idea of what the future of your travels holds?
So right now, no. And that's what's so fun about it.
Yeah, actually, we're thinking go to Ecuador. This was our plan for the last few months.
Yeah.
And then we just figure out that it's very long process to bring our dog with us to Ecuador.
So we Googled what is the easiest country in South America to bring a dog in. And the answer was Mexico.
So that's why we are in Mexico.
So that's what we did.
And we don't know for how long. We just don't know. That's the fun things about it.
Yeah. I think that's awesome. What kind of advice would you give to someone who maybe is listening to your story and is feeling very like, man, I wish I could do that, but I'm afraid I can't leave my job. I can't leave, you know, my friends, or they want to do what you're doing. It's very inspiring, but they feel a little bit afraid. What kind of advice would you give?
Keep being afraid and do it.
All right. Mic drop. Being afraid and do it.
No, I think also it always looks scarier before you do it.
Yes.
It's like when you say, I'm sure like you've heard this, that when you say to people, I'm going to Mexico, their first answer is, it's dangerous.
Yeah, every time.
Like, have you been there? Have you gone? Have you, like, it always looks scarier before you've done what you've done. And I think even like people have noticed it with Corona, like suddenly their jobs that they thought was so stable, and their families and the relationships that they thought were so stable suddenly aren't. Their whole life isn't stable like they thought it is. Life isn't stable. Life is always going to change. It's dynamic. There's lots of hard things to it. If you expect otherwise, then forget about it.
You're gonna get surprised.
You're gonna get surprised. So it's like, would you choose to live your life not happy, doing things that don't give you satisfaction? Or would you want to just do a small jump that scares you a little bit and then live in happiness and in freedom? It's like, I don't even think there's anything to choose. It's like so obvious.
Yeah, well, it's obvious to you because you've been making the leap over and over and over again.
Right.
Life, pretty much. But yeah, I think what you said, you know, taking it small and in bite-sized chunks, and you know, there's almost nothing that we leave behind that we can't get back.
Right.
Like if you're afraid of leaving your stable job, and stability is an illusion, if you're afraid of leaving your stable job, you can get another job.
Right. That's what I meant, that it's obvious after you like understand that nothing is really stable.
Yeah.
It's not obvious like most of our friends and family think we're crazy.
Yeah.
It's not obvious like, oh my God, do it. It's obvious like after you understand that it's all an illusion and it's all really not what's really important, and that you can always go back.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm also think that it's not for everybody.
Yes, for sure.
No,
and
that's true.
If it's born the inside of you for a while, and you say, okay, I want to do it. If you think about it, like let's say more than 2-3 years, so you should give it a chance, because otherwise it will be
missed out.
A waste. Maybe it's not what you like, or maybe it's, so just come back to whatever. It's much easier to come back to stability than go out and live there. But if it's really what you need in your life and this is your inspiration, so you're gonna become another person, going out your all boundaries and just discover yourself from scratch, and this is worth it.
Yeah, I think that's really good. I think that's really good advice. if people wanted to come follow you on social media, see what you're up to, see how Mexico really is, if it's actually that scary, where can they come find you online?
They can follow us on our Instagram, which is the letter B and then Bfreevan. And that's where we're most active.
Yeah.
I could say other places, but that's where you should.
I would send people there. I'll link to it in the show notes as well. But I want to thank you both so much for being here. I have enjoyed this. I really can't wait for our paths to cross in real life.
Yes.
And to the audience who's listening, watching, reading, if you got something out of this episode, go ahead and follow them, Bfreevan, and give the podcast a thumbs up or 5 stars, a like, whatever it is on the platform that you're consuming it on, because again, that helps the algorithms to see us, to get this in front of more people who need to see it. If you want to help support the funds that go into the podcast and offset some of the costs, and keep it ad-free like it has been so far, I have a Venmo and a PayPal linked in the show notes as well. And I hope you guys tune in next week for another excellent episode. And if you have any additional questions for me or Mayaan and Ash, leave them in the comments or send us a DM or something. We'll answer them in a future episode. But thank you all for being here. And thank you especially to my guests this week. This has been so much fun. I can't wait. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.
We've reached the end of this episode of Deliberate Living. You can find the show notes and everything we referenced over on my website, and be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, on YouTube, or sign up for email updates every time something new is published. I'll see you next time on Deliberate Living, and until then, keep your life on the DL too.